So I wrote Love and Addiction, but American addiction theory and treatment went in a different direction. Of course, we've always had AA. AA was created in 1935, and the Big Book was published in 1939. AA wasn't quite the force back then it is now. For most people, AA is the answer and the description of alcoholism. And the idea is that an alcoholic takes alcohol, they lose total control, and nothing in their lives can change that equation. So AA existed for quite a long time, although it became more and more powerful through the 50s and the 1970s. And then in the 1980s, we started developing chains of treatment organizations like Hazelden and, of course, the Betty Ford Center. So put that on one side. On the other side, the model of addiction as a brain disease. It's similar to AA with that disease label, but it's seemingly more scientific. Supposedly, it involves the brain. And the head of something called the National Institute on Drug Abuse, a man named Alan Leshner, wrote a famous paper in 1997 in Science Journal called Addiction is a Brain Disease and It Matters. That was already, we had AA, already we had outlawed narcotics, already people thought heroin was addictive, just that's the way it was. But Leshner gave a body form to it. He called it a brain disease, and really that's the way Americans have been thinking ever since. Alan Leshner was replaced by Nora Volkow in 2003. She came in fairly early in what is now recognized as the opioid epidemic. And she vowed in 2007 to stamp out the opioid painkiller epidemic. Has that happened? Since Nora Volkow became head of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, she's still the director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, deaths due to opioids have increased sixfold. We're now getting over 110,000 deaths a year to 120,000 deaths a year. There were just under 20,000 when she started. Would you say we're not doing so well? I would say so. And my argument in favor of the Life Process Program is about not only helping people to experience the kind of recovery that Harold Mulford and Charles Winnick saw people do naturally, and that happened en masse to soldiers returning from Vietnam. But I want to get society thinking correctly about addiction. And I'm concerned to do that because we've had a never-ending epidemic of deaths due to opioids. And around the middle of the decade, last decade, the way we decided to remedy that was let's cut back on painkillers. And we did that starting around 2013. And guess what happened? Drug deaths rose sharply from 2013 to 2017 and continuing on into the present. I'm going to talk about what the Life Process Program tells us about who's dying and how people are becoming addicted. But what I need to reflect on now with you is the fact, do we need any more proof of how wrong our ideas of addiction are than the failures we're having that everybody acknowledges in dealing with addiction as measured by the worst possible outcomes? People dying from their uncontrolled, negative, reckless use of opioids and narcotics.